All right, people, welcome back. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, and we're going to keep plugging along. Today on our schedule, we're reading through pages 39 to 45, completing the reading task. So make sure you have your Part 1 guide open in one tab and your copy of Fahrenheit 451 open in the other. So before we get started, let's just take a look at our reading guide for today and our reading task. So again, we're reading 39 to 45. This section right here. This question's a little bit tricky, but you'll see that in your workspace I've broken it down for y'all. So how does this author structure Montag's thoughts versus the dialogue in this scene? Explain the difference, then interpret its significance. We know a synonym for significance is importance. So why is it important? So here you're just going to jot down roughly what the structure of his thoughts is in this section. Over here you're going to briefly describe the structure of the dialogue. As we know, thoughts, that's like his internal going ons, what he's thinking in his brain. He's not saying it. Dialogue is what he is saying. Specifically in this section, he's speaking mostly to his wife. Over here, you're going to explain how the structure is different, and then finally, why is this so important that the structure is different? What is revealed through this? Seems like an abstract question. It'll make a lot more sense as we get started reading, so let's just go ahead and pick up where we left off. So starting with page 39, I think that's where I am, so just meet me here. Awesome. Just to backtrack a little bit, because y'all know I like to review what we read before we just plug along. This last section is when we witnessed Montag's real first burning. Now, he's done this before, obviously, but this is the first really in-depth scene that we've read where he is going to a house and he is burning the books inside as well as the house itself. Now, what makes this burning different is that the old woman who owned the house, who was suspected of this, is actually still inside. So Montag tries to get her out. She refuses. The captain says, "It's all good, just let her be." And so they kill the woman in this house, which is kind of crazy. Montag never seen anything like that before. What also makes this burning different is that Montag's feelings start to shift here. So we see that he takes a book for himself and comes home and is acting a little sketchy, rightly so. So moving on to page 39, meet me there. We'll read a couple pages together. Let's get started. "What?" she asked. Remember, that's his wife. He made more soft sounds. He stumbled toward the bed and shoved the book clumsily under the cold pillow. He fell into bed and his wife cried out, startled. He lay far across the room from her on a winter island, separated by an empty sea. That's kind of weird. They sleep in separate beds. She talked to him for what seemed like a long while, and she talked about this and she talked about that, and it was only words, like the words he'd heard once in a nursery at a friend's house, a 2-year-old child building word patterns, talking jargon, making pretty sounds in the air. So essentially, she's talking a lot, but she's not saying too much. But Montag said nothing, and after a long while, when he only made the small sounds, he felt her move in the room and come to his bed and stand over him, and put her hand down to feel his cheek. He knew that when she pulled her hand away from his face, it was wet. Late in the night he looked over at Mildred. She was awake. There was a tiny dance of melody in the air. Her seashell was tamped in her ear again. So remember, the seashell, that's like her AirPod. And she was listening to far people in far places, her eyes wide and staring at the fathoms of blackness above her in the ceiling. Wasn't there an old joke about the wife who talked so much on the telephone that her desperate husband ran out to the nearest store and telephoned her to ask what was for dinner? Okay, and the reason why they say this, ran out to the nearest store to telephone her. Y'all, back in the day, they did not have cell phones. So when he's imagining this, they don't have cell phones. You got to go to the payphone to call. Crazy, yeah. Well then, why didn't he buy himself an audio seashell broadcasting station and talk to his wife late at night, murmur, whisper, shout, scream, yell? But what would he whisper? What would he yell? What could he say? And suddenly, she was so strange. He couldn't believe he knew her at all. He was in someone else's house, like those other jokes people told of the gentleman drunk coming home late at night, unlocking the wrong door, entering a wrong room, and betting with a stranger, and getting up early and going to work, and neither of them the wiser. So that whole page, 39, those are all his thoughts. What do you notice about it just looking at it? I notice that we've got one beefy paragraph here, another beefy paragraph here. It's like long stream of consciousness. It's exactly what he's thinking, right? just looking at the next page. I haven't already read it. I haven't read it already, but I can already tell that the structure is different, right? One, I'm seeing the dialogue tags, I'm seeing the quotes, and I'm seeing, do we have any beefy paragraphs? No, it's really short here. So I would stop and at least make some brief notes here. Structure of his thoughts. Seems like his thoughts go on for a long time. He's pretty straightforward with those, but the dialogue seems pretty short. We'll read through page 40 together, and then I'll turn y'all loose to finish reading to 45 on your own. So remember, he's talking to his wife here. Millie, he whispered. What? I didn't mean to startle you. What I want to know is, well, when did we meet and where? When did we meet for what? She asked. I mean, originally. He knew she must be frowning in the dark. He clarified it. The first time we ever met. Where was it and when? Why, it was at. She stopped. I don't know, she said. He was cold. Can't you remember? It's been so long. Only 10 years, that's all, only 10. Don't get excited, I'm trying to think. She laughed an odd little laugh that went up and up. Funny, how funny not to remember where or when you met your husband or wife. He lay massaging his eyes, his brow, and the back of his neck slowly. He held both his hands over his eyes and applied a steady pressure there, as if to crush memory into place. It was suddenly more important than any other thing in a lifetime that he knew where he had met Mildred. It doesn't matter. She was up in the bathroom now, and he heard the water running and the swallowing sound she made. No, I guess not, he said. He tried to count how many times she swallowed, and he thought of the visit from the two zinc oxide faced men with the cigarettes in their straight lined mouths and the electronic eyed snake winding down into the layer upon layer of night and stone and stagnant spring water, and he wanted to call out to her. How many have you taken tonight? The capsules. So remember, this is a flashback to when his wife, he comes home and he realizes that she's overdosed on all those sleeping pills. How many will you take later and not now? And so on, every hour, or maybe not tonight, tomorrow night, and me not sleeping tonight or tomorrow night, or any night for a long while, now that this has started. And he thought of her lying on the bed with the two technicians standing straight over her, not bent with concern, but only standing straight, arms folded. And he remembered thinking then that if she died, he was certain he wouldn't cry. For it would be the dying of an unknown, a street face, a newspaper image, and it was suddenly so very wrong that he had begun to cry, not at death, but at the thought of not crying at death. A silly empty man near a silly empty woman, while the hungry snake made her still more empty. So again, those are all his thoughts. What do you notice in the structure of that versus this page? Like I said, I want y'all to go ahead and finish up reading up to 45 on your own. Finish up your reading task over here. So you should already have notes in these first two columns. You need to outline the difference in structure here, so explain it in 1 to 2 sentences. And then finally tell me why the differences in the structure is important here. What is it showing us specifically about Montag? So enjoy the rest of your reading. Good luck. If you need any assistance, schedule a time to chat with me online, or you can just shoot me an email, and I will talk to y'all tomorrow.